Hi guys, my name is Angelika Heinrich. Please call me Angie, that's what I go by. I'm the product manager for the WatchTower real-time streaming capability. And for those of you watching us on the live stream, if you happen to miss some of the previous talks, Michael Keel covered WatchTower and all of its available capabilities, so please check out that recording later if you can. When we talk about the WatchTower real-time streaming capability, I like to always start with the why. What is the need that customers are trying to address when they install and activate WatchTower? And really, it all comes down to business goals, right? Our customers' business organizations are looking for ways to grow, increase profits. And maybe one of the business goals that they have as part of the strategy is, how can we increase customer satisfaction? Because if we have a happy customer base, we can increase that customer base and we can increase our profits over time. From a business perspective, we are more and more reliant on software and applications because it's a digital world. So the performance of applications and software are more and more critical to our business organization. That means the CTOs at our customer sites are saying, how can I, from a technology organization, understand what the customer experience is like when they're engaging with our digital services? So let's think about this as an example. If you're making a payment, maybe you're trying to send your friend some cash from the dinner last night, or you've ordered something online, we have multiple options available to us, right? We have maybe a mobile banking app. Maybe we have an online banking portal. Maybe we have multiple bank accounts. So there's different ways we could do that. We have peer-to-peer payment services available to us. How do we choose which of those options we're going to use now? Maybe convenience is a factor, right? What's the right use case? But maybe we're also thinking about the experience we've had with a specific payment service. Like, for example, when I press pay, am I expecting pay done? Am I expecting pay, wait, and wait? Yeah, you're right. And then maybe it works. And what's even worse is you press pay and you wait, and then you get an error. So as a user myself, maybe I try again because I think maybe I didn't click the button right. Like, let me press extra hard this time. Maybe it'll go through. And then the experience is the same. It fails. I'm probably going to switch over to a different payment service, right? I'm not going to keep trying. I'm not going to call and raise a ticket with the bank and be like, hey, this didn't work, because why? I have a couple of other options already there. And the next time I need to make the same kind of payment, I'm probably not going to go back to that service because I'm going to remember that experience. So how can we make sure that we're able to understand the experience our customers are having, our end users, to our business services, and react? If I'm losing one customer or thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers within seconds, how can we reduce that impact? Is site reliability engineering a term you're hearing from customers, from organizations you work with? Yes?
I'll just jump in real quick.
Please, go ahead.
Platform engineering's outcome focus is enabling the developer manager. Mm-hmm. My sense of SRE, when that came in, it was. I mean, each seems to be a glorified version of the previous title, and SRE was a glorified version of the infrastructure operations team,
right? Whose
focus was, as the term implied, reliability and performance of the infrastructure. So you have a different design point, so to speak, for each function.
Yeah.
And mainframe in general, in my sense, has been very application oriented from the beginning. So I think Stephen has a really good point. Mm-hmm. That's the trend where it's going. But if you're serving an SRE function, maybe you are serving the developer within this particular corner of tech. I don't know.
It's a good point. It's a good point. From the SRE side at Broadcom, when we talk about the SRE, we're talking about the role of understanding what the end user experience is. They're working with tools, different kinds of tools to monitor that experience, to triage when they see anomalies with the experiences that we should be having. They want to be able to alert stakeholders. They want to be able to analyze and ask questions on the data live, right? As issues are occurring, how can I more quickly figure out what the root cause is? And when we've resolved that problem, is there a way we could automate that resolution next time? So this is a little bit to what Steve was saying, is there is a little bit of platform engineering that is happening in the background as well. Now, all of these aspects within the site reliability engineering pillar requires data. You can't do any of this if you don't get data from the different platforms and applications in your environment. And that's where the WatchTower real-time streaming capability comes in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So I said this SRE is using tools. Can anyone think of different tools that SREs may be using at some of your organizations or your customer sites? Do we know what they would use? Maybe something like Datadog or Dynatrace is a tool that they're using to understand how applications are performing, what the end user experience is. New Relic, Grafana, multiple different kinds of tools are available. And what's driving the customers to us is they say, we love New Relic or we love Datadog, but we don't have support in that product for Mainframe. So I can map out my entire business service until it calls the Mainframe. And then it's an IP call. I maybe see the latency, right, how long it took to get a response from that Mainframe service, but I'm not seeing what the Mainframe service is actually doing. I don't understand what applications are being triggered. If something fails, where does it fail? I rely very heavily then on my SMEs that some of my colleagues talked about earlier to give me that information. And we know that Mainframe SMEs, our sysprogs, our platform experts, they have a lot to do as it is. And having to always be this mediator to give information about how the Mainframe is performing is maybe not the time well spent, right? That skill should be working on maintaining, upgrading, and modernizing our platform. So how can we improve the life of an SME on Mainframe, but also make it easier for someone on the SRE side to understand how the Mainframe plays a role in an end user experience? So with WatchTower, we are streaming live Mainframe telemetry being traces, metrics, and logs, in an open telemetry format, which is an observability framework and standard, and is supported by the various tools that SREs employ today. This is a great way to use a standard like OpenTelemetry to educate an SRE on Mainframe. They don't have to be a Mainframe expert to understand what they're looking at when we're using a standard like OpenTelemetry.
What we're talking about here is exposing in Datadog, Grafana, whatever, through OpenTelemetry, a Z-based, a Mainframe-based application as if it were just any one of their containers somewhere.
Exactly.
Or pods, yeah.
Exactly. I didn't want to use the term, but it is kind of democratizing the Mainframe information in a way that is easy for a non-Mainframe expert to understand. Now, when we talk about OpenTelemetry traces, metrics, and logs, I'll just go back to the screen. A trace on its own is going to tell me how a request flows from an end user application through the system to a backend, Mainframe kicks region, database access, all of that. Now, a trace on its own gives me this request level insight. But what happens if I start to see the kicks request latency or the response times increasing? But when I'm looking in the trace, I'm not seeing metadata that's saying it's something specific to this kicks transaction, for example. How do I understand if there's an environmental impact? Maybe the resources kicks is using is impacting the way this kicks transaction is performing. We would use things like metrics maybe to understand the environment. But we don't want to just have a metric here and a trace here. We want to be able to go from a trace of a specific instance of a CICS transaction and immediately within context have metrics around that trace or that specific instance of the transaction. We may also want to have logs, right? Maybe there is a specific event happening as well with some descriptive information of an event that's happening on the mainframe that could be impacting this CICS transaction. And I want to talk a bit about that because each of those signals I've just described are powerful on their own, but they're more powerful together. And if you use OpenTelemetry the right way, you can easily correlate that telemetry. So you're giving someone kind of a three-dimensional view of how that CICS transaction, for example, is performing, what's around that CICS transaction that could be impacting my end-user experience today. And that's something that we focused a lot on as we were developing the WatchTower real-time streaming capability. And I'm going to just take you through a very short playthrough of what an SRE may be doing to understand what is happening on the mainframe. Does anyone know what I'm looking at here as an SRE? Does anyone see any indicator of what this may be?
I'm thinking the big bad red.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's something bad.
I don't know why my eyes drawn to the
this
red.
big red thing.
Correlate with the key that says bad events. Maybe
something bad is happening. That is so true. Oh my gosh. And I love that they just used really simplified language, good and bad. I mean, let's not get technical about it.
Well, I'm seeing an
The budget
infrastructure.
doesn't look good.
Yeah, I'm seeing a capacity and infrastructure stress because we have more good events at the moment than anywhere else, but there's clearly a capacity constraint.
There is some kind of capacity constraint.
I wonder what it is.
I wonder what it could be. Has anyone heard of the term SLO, service level objectives?
Yeah.
Do we know why we would use something like service level objectives maybe in place of a static threshold alert? Does anyone know why we would do that?
A good question. So an SLO, SLA is the usual term, but it's morphed.
Right, so we might agree on an SLO, right? We have an agreement, this is how services should perform, and the SLO is actually maybe, what do we want the experience to be for whatever it is, an end-to-end service, a specific CICS region.
Yeah, I feel like SLOs acknowledge trade-offs, that there's when failure is allowed.
Yes.
Because of the assessed cost of meeting, something stricter.
Yes, that is exactly it. We have, you see there on the side there, we have this error budget. What is our trade-off between reliability and availability at this point in time? A static threshold is great when we know what we want to measure. There is something specific that could go wrong and we know what it is. But when we're talking about complex cross-platform services, we don't always know what might go wrong when it does go wrong, right? That means with a service level objective like this, we want to use two things. We want to be able to measure good events. We know what a good event is because we have a service level objective. We know what good performance or good experience should be. And we also know the total number of events or transactions, right? So we can measure good transactions and total transactions. What the bad is, we don't know, but we know it's not good. So this is where the service level objective is quite flexible. The downside could be the first time you start to use service level objectives, it can be more complicated. So there is a bit of a lead time to understand how to properly employ this. But all of the data that we're using is coming from traces and metrics and logs. Traces, there's ways to set an error to say a transaction has failed, it has not performed well. Metrics also give us the ability to understand trends that are good or bad. And so here's just a snapshot of how an SRE could use data coming from the Broadcom WatchTower solution that we commonly refer to as the iris. These are metrics that we are producing out of a KICS region, for example. And here we can set what a good event is. We can set the total number of events that I want to measure. I want to have my 5.9 availability. And when we have a breach, I want to be able to notify someone about what that breach is.
SLI?
So those are the service level indicators. So an indicator would actually be these metrics here. Yeah, I know.
No, but I is used for indicator, and I never remember that it is.
Okay. So now we're feeding data from Mainframe to a tool an SRE knows. They know how to use these SLIs to measure SLOs according to SLAs. I love saying that. So again, the SRE doesn't need to be a Mainframe expert to be able to use this data in a way that's going to be useful to them. They understand this platform well enough, and they understand open telemetry, so they understand how to set this up. But I was talking about correlation. So an SRE wants to go from that big red bar that we saw. How can we understand more about what's actually causing this big red bar? Depending on what tool you have, you might have a really fancy little link that'll tell you, oh, let me see the related traces. And here we can see just like a snapshot of some traces coming in from this KICS region that we're sending from WatchTower. This is the KICS region name. It's a task-owning region. This resource is actually the transaction, the SSPN. You can see we have the duration of each execution of that transaction. And we can see that time is increasing, right? The amount of time it takes this transaction to complete seems to be increasing drastically at some points here. 4 minutes. Can you imagine waiting 4 minutes for a payment? So we're seeing, just from this summarized view of this trace data, we're seeing some bad behavior. But again, we want to give context. We want to give some correlation. We want to help find the root cause, at least an area that an SME on the mainframe should be focusing on to resolve the situation. So this is just a snapshot of what a trace could look like. Again, a trace is distributed. It's not just mainframe focused. It includes distributed services as well. So we can see there is this queue. A message probably went on that queue. It triggered that KICS transaction, and we can see some MQ actions that KICS transaction is performing. Now, in the trace data, if you've ever seen an open telemetry trace, there are multiple ways to describe the environment, the transaction, the system itself as well. But there's also ways to add very detailed information. And so what we did with the real-time streaming capabilities, we said, we can't just say there's an error, because that might be helpful, but that means someone's going to have to go maybe into syslog or into the KICS log to see what the error is. So let's extract that information. Let's give them the event code. And then let's also give them full documentation of what that means. Because maybe the SRE is going to raise a ticket. Maybe the first person who looks at this is not familiar with what ASP7 is. Instead of having to go Google it, it's right here in line with the end-to-end user experience view. And we can see more information about what exactly may be failing and impacting that KICS transaction. So what I want to say is it's not enough to only talk about tracing. We're creating traces now. We need to add logs, and we need to add metrics, and we need to do this in a contextualized way to help SREs better understand how the mainframe is performing, but also help the SRE help a mainframe SME. All this information here is useful to a mainframe SME to solve the problem. The region name, the time, the dates, the error codes, all of that information is useful. So they will go into WatchTower and know exactly where to start.